To me, that's the beautiful thing that we can offer these books. But one of the other big books, because I can spend hours talking about this book here, but one of the other big books that Daniela asked me to speak about is the Polyvagal Theory by Dr. Stephen Porges. Dr. Porges is a psychologist, an author, and university professor. And how many of you guys have heard of the Polyvagal Theory? Have you heard of the Polyvagal Theory? All right, good. So if you don't know the Polyvagal Theory, you've got to learn, if you're going to deal with kids, you've got to learn the Polyvagal Theory. Because the Polyvagal Theory has transformed my thought process on how to deal with them. Dr. Melillo's work transformed what I do to the kids, but this transformed how I do it to the kids. Right? So that's the big difference, or why both are so important, is you need to know what to do, but you need to know how to do it. And the Polyvagal Theory talks about building trust first. Right? The way I was able to get into this little girl's psyche is to build trust first, and I did not do anything to that little girl until I found a way to calm her down. And not that it's bad or wrong, but a lot of chiropractors and other health practitioners are like, I have things to do, I'm just going to do them regardless of the condition of what's happening with the little kid. That's a great way to totally turn that kid off to ever wanting to see you again. Or walking in your office and going, ah! Because it's like, oh my God, it's that office again, it's that doctor again, and they see your face, so they see the office and they just, right? And they go into an atomic explosion. We have to build trust first. The idea is not to get the job done. I know that a lot of healthcare providers, whether they're chiropractors or other healthcare providers, have this mindset that I have 10 visits to get things done. Insurance, United Healthcare, or Blue, or Aetna, or Anthem is going to pay 10 visits, so I got 10 visits to do my work. So I got to rush to get it done. That is a concept that does not work with these kiddos. We have to do it on their speed. On their speed. I call it patient-led adjustment. So I do what they let me do. And I start with tonal work, and I work my way up. From tonal to sustained contact to instrument-based adjusting to more diversified kind of adjusting. I work my way up based on their needs, not based on my schedule. So if they're coming in here, this is the polyvagal scale, if they're coming in here in freeze, as I call it, I'm not going to do the same adjustment as if they're coming in here where they're in fight or flight, stuck in sympathetics, nor am I going to adjust the same way as I came in here as that little girl who comes last night, and now the same little girl who was screaming her head off when I first met her, right? She's now here. She now sees me as safe. She loves me. I love her. So when she hugs me, I'm like, and here's a girl who won't touch other people. But she comes in and she hugs me because she says, this person is safe. I trust this person. So, but I built that, right? And you need to build that with these kids. You build the trust. Trust isn't something that happens instantly. Trust is something that you have to build and show that you care. By not forcing your things, your scheduled, I need to do this adjustment at this time on their little brains and nerve systems. You do it on their time frame. So here's a paper that I wrote maybe 10 years or so ago about the Polyvagal Theory when I first was introduced to it at an ICPA conference, the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association. So when I first was introduced to that by one of the speakers, I remember sitting next to Lisa, my beautiful wife over there. I said, you ever heard of that? She said, no, I never heard of that. And I said, I gotta look into this. I gotta look into this. And that was like the beginning of this free fall of looking at all these different things. And when I wrote this paper, before I actually had it published in Dr. McCoy's journal of Family, Maternal, and Pediatric Health, I actually emailed this to Dr. Porges, not expecting ever to hear from him at all, but I just said, I just want your blessing to make sure that what I'm saying is kind of sort of copacetic with what you're saying. And he actually emailed me back a few days later saying, Dr. Rubin, thank you so much for this. This is great. This is the first paper in chiropractic about the polyvagal theory, and it's actually very congruent with our philosophy. And I appreciate that, and we should talk more and stuff. So I've had communication now with Dr. Porteous for a while because of this paper, and this is showing how important the polyvagal theory is now in chiropractic. And now there's all kinds of speakers out there talking polyvagal theory. And this thing is so important. But what I want to do today, because even though I think the polyvagal theory is huge, I have recently come upon something else that I think is very important that I want to dovetail with the polyvagal theory. And this was because of my beautiful wife. My beautiful wife comes home one day and says to me, have you ever heard of this book called Surfing Uncertainty? And I'm like, no. And she said, yeah, one of the students actually talked to me about this book, Surfing Uncertainty. And it sounded really interesting, and you should read this. And I'm like, Surfing Uncertainty, is this like some kind of surfing book? I did surf when I was in New York, when I lived there, but at this time, I can't figure this out. So I got the book, I started reading it, and it just, once again, just shoved me down the Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole of wow, this is so huge, because what this does is this takes the polyvagal theory to the next level. Because the polyvagal theory, so what Melillo's work told me what to do, the polyvagal theory told me how to do it, and the prediction theory tells me why this is working. So, and I never really, I've heard about the predictive importance of the brain and blah, 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 but I never really kind of put it into an action step until I started looking more into this. And so my recommendation is to and I'm sorry for throwing a lot of books to you, but that's just what I just realized. So this book, and then he has a follow-up book with the Experience Machine, and then in this book he mentions this book, the Autism, the Predictive Brain. So all of these things really work together to really help me understand what this is. And last year, after Dr. Melillo's conference, I presented something on the predictive brain. So that's what I'm going to kind of talk to you about. So people with autism, there's all kinds of stuff happening with a child with autism or an adult with autism. But one of the things is that they have problems with something called interoception. And interoception is the way our body is able to understand its internal cues. So, in other words, if I have to pee, I get this sensation that I think I have to go pee, and then I understand that sensation. I read that, my body says, you have to pee. And I'm like, okay, I get it, I have to pee, but I still have 45 minutes. So, you're just going to have to wait. Okay, so I can have this conversation and get this, and then, okay, at 10 o'clock when I'm done, I can go pee. But what happens if you don't get that sensation? So it's not the sensation doesn't exist. The sensation exists, but you can't interpret it. So you get the sensation, and you're like, and you just keep on going, and it's not that you ignore, it's that you don't know. I don't connect that sensation with I have to pee. And then if you keep on going, and now it's 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock, what happens? If you have to pee, and your body says you have to pee, but you don't pee, what's eventually your body going to do? It's just going to let it out. All right, well, I told you, and you just didn't listen, right? But it's not that they didn't listen, it's that they didn't understand. It's like they're saying, you need to pee, but the body hears, woo, 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 and I don't get that, right? So I just keep on going. That's interoception. Now, why is that important with prediction? Because if incoming sensation and internal sensation is not understood, then you can't predict the world. So, if I know I have to pee, and then when I'm done talking, I can go pee, that's a prediction, right? I made a prediction. I have to pee. I know about approximately what time I'm going to pee, and so I don't have to leave in the middle of the lecture, so that's okay. But if you don't get that, then all of a sudden you have wet pants. That's very unpredictable. Like, where did this come from? How did that happen? I don't get this, right? It's because you didn't connect the signals, right? If you say you're like, we ate before we came here, but let's say I didn't eat, and now I'm getting hungry, I would say, okay, well, at 10 o'clock after I pee, I can eat, right? But what happens if I don't get that? So I'm like hungry, but I don't realize that that's a hunger cue. And then, so now it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and now I peed in my pants, I'm also really hungry, so now what do? Now I'm angry, right? So you get hangry because you're not connecting this. And this is all the insula. The insula is controlling all this stuff. But kids on the spectrum have a significant problem in their insula, and one of the significant issues is that kids on the spectrum, they have over-connectedness on one side, on one hemisphere, but under-connectivity on the other side. So when there is a cue on one side, and then an action is supposed to be taking place because it's supposed to cross over and talk, that's not happening. So this is happening, and this is, I don't have all the studies, but I can show it to you later if you ever email me. I can show you the study that shows that the children with autism, adults with autism, have different functional connectivities within their brain. MRI studies, fMRI, EEG studies, all showing these kind of things. So I'm not sure if I can get this to work, because sometimes it doesn't, but let's see. Okay, good. Let's see. Come on. You can do it. Come on. Come on. Confirm the bot.
Yeah, you can decide to do to work.
Let's see if I get it to work through this. Oh gosh. Well, anyway, what this was is. It's just not letting me do it. Okay.
Do you want me to do it?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
We don't have enough time to figure this out. So, this is a video of a child hitting his head. And he's not hitting it gently. He's really smacking it. I mean, you would hear boom, right? Every time he hits his head. And the dad's like, Johnny, don't do that, Johnny. Boom, right? And there's no reasoning to this. It's not like, Johnny, I really think you should not hit your head, right? There's no there's no understanding to this, right? Because the reason he's hitting his head is why, based on what I'm talking about.
Subluxation.
He's not making the connection that it hurts, but why is he doing it?
To try to fix the subluxation that's in his cervical.
To try to fix something, but what he's really doing in the fixing, Hunter, is he's hitting his head for prediction. I can control this. I can control this. Bam! I know what's going to happen. Bam! Right? I am in control. That's why he's doing this. That's why a lot of kids who are severely on the spectrum, autism 3, will do this. Yeah.
Would you say that there's like a sense of like relief when doing these actions that may be self-harming?
I don't know if I would call it relief, because I think relief implies a different level of thinking. I think there's a sense of, I get it, right? Like linearity, like a lot of people on the spectrum like a more linear, kind of predictable, organized kind of thing. So this, even though this, you and I would look at this and say, this is very disorganized, bam, right? But it's not disorganized, it's actually quite organized if you think about from what their perspective is. Yeah, but good thought though, good thought. So the old concept about the way our brains take in information is that, like, I see something, and then my brain says, I'm talking at Life University to a group of WCCS students, and you probably should keep on going, talking, and not thinking about this, right? So that's what the old concept is, right? So the action step is keep on talking, just don't digress. But that's not what really is happening. Because what's really happening is the brain is comparing prediction, incoming data, and sends prediction errors to higher levels. So in other words, I'm looking at you guys. You guys look pretty safe, so I feel safe. So that's the polyvagal theory. I feel safe. But what's really happening also is I look out like this, and until someone raises their hand, my prediction is that this room will not change. But someone raises their hand, and now I have a prediction error. Because, oh, this person over here is raising their hand. That's not the same as it was before. So now I have to reinterpret what this means, and I have to say to myself, okay, so the person I'm talking, and there's a hand up. The hand up means I have a question. So I need to stop what I'm doing. So I had this lecture here, and I have to stop what I'm doing and do something different. But once again, what happens if you don't get that? What happens if I don't? So the hand goes up like this, and I don't understand what that means. And I just keep on plowing through, because I have a lecture, and I'm just going to keep on going with the lecture. See, so I don't read the predictions. And that's what's happening with this prediction theory, with the brain, is, see, so kids with autism, their vagus nerve is dysregulated. So most of the time, they're spending their time within fight or flight or freeze. So social engagement is not an area, that third one of the ladder. Let's go back for a second. Right? They're not spending time here. They're spending most of their time here, especially for autism level 2, level 3, the more significant, big challenge for kiddos. So they're spending a lot of time here. What chiropractic does, as an aside, is we help them spend more time here. Right? Like that little girl I told you about now spends a lot more time here versus here in this panic attacking, hyper sympathetic mode, or in the freeze mode. But what's really happening now, and adding on top of this, so they have a dysregulated nerve system, dysregulated vagal nerve, they also cannot predict. So imagine the frustration of a person who can't predict that they're going to wet their pants because they didn't pee. Imagine the frustration of a child who is hungry and goes beyond hunger and then starts to get hangry and scream and yell because they're so hungry and they didn't satiate, their appetite. Right? So this is what's really happening, and this is where the polyvagal theory of we need to make these kids feel safe dovetails with the prediction theory. Is in our offices, we need to make our offices what? Safe and predictable. Safe and predictable. Because when we make our offices safe and predictable, now we make a beautiful environment for them. We make an oasis. Right? Because you go into, let's say, a Walmart or a Target or a Kroger's or an airport or a restaurant. They're loud and unpredictable, and there's crashing, and there's people laughing all of a sudden, or there's, the announcement on the loudspeaker, all of a sudden, and it's very like unpredictable. It doesn't feel safe, right? So you see how those two things work together? The predictability and the safety work together. So that is what, to me, this is the beauty behind reading and researching, is that it never stops, right? So first I got Melillo's work, then I got polyvagal work, now I'm into this prediction work, and there's something else coming down the pipe that I haven't even read yet, right? And that's what makes it so exciting. I'm 37 years in practice, and I'm still learning. This jazzes me up, because now I have a possibility of what's next. And so a lot of people say, I don't understand, when I first started doing this talks about prediction, I don't get what you're talking about. But I want you to think about this. How many times have you looked at your watch saying, or you go like this and you say, oh, someone just texted me. And you go like this, and nobody texted you. I could have sworn I felt that, someone's calling me, I can feel it, right? And then my phone is in my pocket, but let's say it was in my pocket. Like, I think I'm getting a call or a text, or I just got a Facebook post like this, and nothing's there, right? That's a prediction error. But what's happened is our bodies, are now getting so accustomed to these buzzes and chirps and all these other kind of things. Hey, we're so accustomed to these buzzes and chirps and things that now we're constantly looking at our watches, looking at our phones, because we think something is going to be there, or especially if we're expecting something, now we're looking at it all the time, thinking, oh, something, oh, there it goes, oh, that wasn't it, right? We're stuck in these prediction errors too, but we have the ability to say, oh, that's a prediction error, right? But these kiddos, especially the kiddos with autism level 3, do not have that ability to understand that, to put those two things together. Now, I don't know if this is going to work either. Let's see. It worked everywhere else. Okay, so what this was showing is, like, because I've had some people say, I don't buy this prediction thing. It really doesn't, it's not as important as you think. And now, I am not a championship tennis player like these people that you would have seen at this work. But there's no way that a 100-mile-an-hour serve can be returned without prediction. Because it is impossible for our eyes to actually say, oh, the ball is coming towards me at 100 miles an hour. I probably should move my racket like this, right? It's not going to work. You have to, like, you're sitting there looking at your opponent saying, okay, I see his racket is turned a little bit, to the right, and he's going up like this instead of like this, so it's going to come out over here, right? So you're like this, and you automatically make this move to return, the serve. There's no way in like a half a second you could have done that if you were just using your brain in terms of linear progression, like this is what this means, this is what this means, this is what this means, right? You used to be going like this, and then the person would be acing you every time, right? You're like, wait a second, I didn't get a chance to think about that, right? So that's not working. You have to make it work, and the way it's making it work is prediction. Prediction is making our brains work way faster, which is absolutely brilliant. Like, what a brilliant thing that our brains were able to do. And this isn't just a human thing. If you look at birds and animals, whatever, like, you ever see all those birds and all of a sudden they're all turning like this, and there's like 200 birds flying and they're all turning. How is that possible? It's because they have this predictive ability that they're all talking to each other in their own little bird language. And they're able to make the turns and twists and stuff because they can predict. They know, they see the lead bird turning like this, like, I gotta turn too, right? And that's how they're all doing it, together. So yeah, just look at the athleticism, first off, of these two people. And he falls down, gets back up, like, unbelievable, right? No way could you have done this just if you're saying, let me think about it. Wow, I fell down. I think I'm just going to stay here, right? But that's just not, it's amazing. Now, this would have been great too, but I don't think that. Anyway, I'll skip this. The reason I'm saying this is because once you understand the context, then prediction is easier. But if you can't understand the context, then you can't predict. Right? So, our right brain is the big picture brain. Right? So I take the whole room in. With my right brain, I'm taking the whole room in. And I feel safe, and I feel predictable, and everything is going as I planned it, so I feel good. My left brain, right, is a completely different thing. My left brain is the analytical brain. So my left brain is saying, I got a person here, person here, person here, person here, person here, person here. And I know most of these people to some degree, and I just met those people over here, right? And that's my left brain is saying specific, right? But the left and the right brain are constantly talking to each other, so that's why we're making predictable and safe, and predictable and safe, and predictable and safe. That's the way a neurotypical brain works. But a child on the spectrum, autism level 3 on the spectrum, that predictability and safety is not working. It's not going back and forth, right? Because a lot of kiddos on the spectrum are very left brain dominant kiddos. It's just what most of them happen to be, according to Dr. Lillo. So they can see the individual things, but they can't put the big picture on this. So what happens with that is, like, they get overloaded. typical person, the prediction errors will maybe create some stress, but you're probably not going to get to overload unless you're super stressed. So, what that means for us is you and I will start to learn, right? So the first time I started public speaking when I was in high school, and I was scared out of my mind, standing like this, shaking, right? Because I was so nervous, right? Because I was in an unpredictable environment, but my teacher and debate and speech coach made me go up there and do this, because he said, "You got a great voice. I want you to do this." I was like, I don't want to do this. He said, "I don't care what you want. You're going to do this." So, but by doing it over and over again, right? So I went from being a novice, confused over here, scared, shaking, so sympathetics, right? Dry mouth, right? Sympathetics. And then now, I don't like calling myself an expert, but now I just know how to do this. I feel totally comfortable in front of a crowd, whether it's a crowd of a small crowd or a giant crowd. I spoke in Wisconsin last week. The place was packed. Right? But it's the same for me. It's the same because I have done it so many times. I create a very predictable thing. I create predictable PowerPoints, and I have a predictable thing I'm going to say, and I know the material I'm going to talk about. I'm not talking about like plumbing or something, which would be a hard topic to discuss with enthusiasm. Although plumbing is very important, but not something I can explain. But once again, if we're over here, right? If I'm here, so I can perform. If I'm here, then I'm melting down. I'm overloaded. I cannot combine prediction with safety. You understand? That's how these two things step together. I can't combine this with the safety. So I'm over here. So if I'm here, am I going to feel safe? Good morning. No, I'm going to feel unsafe. So that's why I'm overloaded and meltdown. Let's see if this works. Oh, look at that. So, what does a child with autism do to block the external stimuli is this is an example of something I see quite often. I have a couple of kiddos in my practice who are literally stuck in their phones like this. And what's totally amazing is that they have the incredible ability, like this one boy the other day was watching Paw Patrol, the same 4 seconds of Paw Patrol over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And Chase is saying this one thing to Sky over and over, it's the same thing, the same thing. Like, wow, this guy, like, I can't make that happen. And he's doing it like he's not, like if I had to do that, I'd probably miss it over and over, and I'd make it 4 seconds and 8 seconds and 10 seconds and 4 seconds, and I probably would not be able to do the exact same 4 seconds over. This kid can do this on a phone 4 seconds, but you ask him to point to the letter A and he can't. Because pointing is not the same as in his own brain saying, this is what I'm going to do. So I say point to the letter A, and that's all. That's going to come in here, right, through his ears, and then the right side, okay, he wants me to point to the letter A, and then it's got to cross to the left side for the motor action to occur, and now that's not occurring. But in his own brain, he said, I want to watch the same 4 seconds. I can do that. So, because you look at that and you say, and I've had healthcare providers tell us, he's got normal dexterity in his fingers. No, he does not. He may be able to move his fingers, but I'm not talking about can you move your fingers. I'm talking about if I ask you to move your fingers, can you do that? If you can't do that, then that's not normal volitional movement. So yes, he can do things if he himself decides to do things, but the key in teaching these kids how to use a letter board is to teach them that you want to volitionally point to the letter A, point to the letter B, etc. But you've got to raise their brain's understanding, and the way you do that, from my perspective of this many years of adjusting these kiddos, is through chiropractic care on a gentle basis in the beginning and working your way up, and then some functional neurological exercises to help engage their brains in between adjustments. So that's how we get them from point A to point B. So we know they have addiction issues. We know they have vagal nerve dysregulation. We know this. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll teach the kids internal body awareness. So we'll teach the kids, like, especially the ones who can understand better, we'll teach them, can you breathe? Let's do some belly breathing. You know, when you breathe in, your belly should go out. And we'll teach them that, and they never have thought about that. They never thought what happens to their bellies. We'll teach them, I was one little kiddo, he's such a cutie. And one of the things we're doing, he couldn't figure that out. So we're teaching him heartbeat awareness. Because I want him to learn what's happening on the inside. I want him to say, oh, there's a heartbeat in here, right? And even if that means you put, your fingers on mom, like the kid puts their fingers on mom or dad's chest or carotid or whatever, and then say, see that? If you feel that, that's the same in here, right? So it's called a heartbeat challenge. So we teach these kids how to do this sort of stuff. And primitive reflex work, we teach them that, like, if you have a palmar grasp reflex, that every time you're doing this, your fingers move, we're teaching them, I want you to connect the fact that I'm using a brush on your hands and your fingers move every time. Even if you can't necessarily get them to verbally understand that, but you can say, you see this? We want you to not do that anymore. So we're going to keep on doing this until that stops. And that's why primitive reflex work is so important, because you're teaching them the connection between feeling something and how their brain is working. And we're teaching that connection. We want to create that safe, predictable environment and teach this to parents to create this polyvagal concepts. We want to create predictable adjustments. So if you're going, in the beginning when you're adjusting them, do stuff that's super, super gentle, and then slowly kind of work your way up. They trust you, that you can do more things and different things. But explain everything. And don't ever make the assumption that they don't understand. Because they do. Even babies. I always ask babies, I'm going to adjust you, especially in the beginning. Is it okay if I adjust your neck? I'm going to touch your neck now. I'm going to touch your back now. And I always ask permission of babies. I have permission of, literally speaking, children on the spectrum. I'm going to do this now. Is that okay? Right? And follow their lead. So as an example, the other day, 2 weeks ago, we had this one relatively new patient, and I first started him with total adjusting only, little sustained contact, and after his re-exam he showed some significant changes. So I said, okay, we're going to start using the activator. So I showed him the activator, and I clicked it in my hand, I clicked on mommy's hand, I clicked on his hand, he was fine with it. I adjusted him that day with it, he was fine. The next day he came in, I showed him the activator, he starts crying, and took the activator and threw it. I said, okay, well, I guess we're not using the activator today. Right? But in other words, I let him lead. I didn't say, kiddo, we're doing it. Lie down and let's get the job done here. Right? I said, okay, that's cool. That's totally cool. I said, next time we're going to try that again, okay? And I adjusted his sustained contact and total. And then the next visit, I came in, I showed the activator, you okay with this now? And he just kind of looked at me, but he didn't say yes or no. And I'm like, okay, well, that means, yeah, so I'm going to try. I'll try the new pelvis. Is that okay? Is that okay? Yeah, good. Okay, let's try the rest of it. And then we did the rest of the adjustment. Right? So I let him lead, and he knows that. And people will say, well, you're letting them, take advantage of you. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. First off, I don't care about that as a thought process. Right? I'm not in a power struggle. I don't have to be the winner. I don't have to have judgment. Right? All I want to do is I want to introduce a loving, gentle chiropractic adjustment into this child in whatever way they want to receive it. And that's not a bad thing. And you don't need to say, you lie down and we're going to hold you down and get you adjusted. Now, some people do that, that's totally fine, and that's what they want to do. But you're not going to build rapport that way. I want to build rapport, that's my thing. I want to find the stuff the kids like and allow them to repeat it. If they like that particular adjustment, great, I'll keep on doing it. And if that one particular day they don't like it, then I won't do it. But a lot of chiropractors have this thought, like, I'm just going to just, duplicate the last visit, and I'm just going to do the same thing. That's not how it goes. Not with these kiddos. Yes?
I would have thought that you would do the same thing you did last time, because then you're setting a predictable...
Yes, it is, but what happens if they don't want it? So I agree 100%. So I like doing a predictable thing, and then after re-exams, we introduce new things because we try new things, and we explain that to them. Even if they don't necessarily acknowledge what I'm saying, we're going to try activator today. This is what it looks like. Okay, click. Okay, here's a click. Mom, I can put it on your hand. See, that's fine, right? Let's try this with you. And he was fine with that first time, but then the next time he wasn't. So even though I could say, well, we did that last time, but that's not, if he took it and threw my activator, then I would, okay, he does not want the activator today, right? But then we'll go back to it, right? So we try to be, so, and he happened to have, reported from the mom, a really bad day at school that day. So his nerve system, if you think about the polyvagal ladder, right, his nerve system, which was going from the freeze where he started to fight or flight, and then into the social engagement part, was dropping back down into fight or flight or freeze. So we have to monitor where they are on the polyvagal scale in order to adjust them based upon where they are in those 3 levels. Right? So I'll adjust differently based upon where they're at. Good question. So just a couple of scenarios to really explain this even better. So I get this one little boy, and he loves fans. And he tells me, I didn't realize that there are different types, and I knew there's different kinds of fans in terms of size, but there's actually, the blades are different, and each blade is a different thing. And so in one room, I have this fan, and he said, that's a mainstay fan. And so he's a higher level kid. He's more like autism level 2, where he's got some issues, but he's a lot more verbal. And he said, that's a mainstay fan. I'm like, great. And can I turn it on? Sure. And he gets off the table, he turns it on, and I'm adjusting it, and he says, I want to turn it off. Okay. And he gets off. And the mom's like, you don't have to let him do it. I said, no, I don't care. I don't care if it takes me longer to do the adjustment, as long as he's happy. And he's getting on and off the table, turning on and off the fan, telling me about the fan. And every time I see him, we have to go to that room for that particular fan, and he tells me about it as if I've never heard it before. But the answer, the way we approach this is not to say, Johnny, you told me about this fan. I know it's a mainstay. Got it. Mainstay, got it. Check. Right? Just lie down, shut up, let's get you adjusted. That's not what we do. Like, oh really? It's a mainstay? Wow. How do you know it's a mainstay? Well, it's got blades like this and this and this and this. Can I turn it on? Yeah. And fine. Judgment free. Right? So many of us want to correct. Right? We want to be right. We want so much to be right. Stop being right. Just be loved. Just be loved. Far more important. Next thing is, I was dressed as Paw Patrol. We had a Paw Patrol Halloween last year in 2025. So every Halloween we dress up as a theme, right? So I'm Chase here. So there's this one little girl. We just did it last night. One little girl, and she has gone from total adjusting to now doing full-on activator and some cranial work. And so I adjust her, and she turns over so I can do the cranial work. And she looks at me and she says, "Are you dressed like Paw Patrol this on Halloween week?" "Yeah." And she said, "You're Chase." I said, "Yeah." So I'm adjusting her occiput, and I'm going to her temporal walls. She said, "Are you Paw Patrol?" "Yeah." "Yeah." "You're Chase, aren't you?" "Yeah, I sure am." "Yeah." Now I'm on her parietal bones, and now I'm on her frontal bones. "Dr. Rubin, yeah, you're doing Paw Patrol, right?" "Yes, I sure am." "And are you dressed as Chase? That's what the one you're on?" "Yep, I'm Chase. That's who I am." "Yep, I sure am." God bless you. The parent who's over here is saying, "Dr. Rubin, you've already answered the question." I'm like, "It's cool. It's cool. Right? It's totally cool." She can ask me 1,000 times. And I said the same thing. "Yeah, this is Paw Patrol. I'm Chase." Right? With no judgment. Because I want her to feel safe. God bless you. I want her to feel safe and happy and secure and predictable. So if she's stuck in this little pattern, the same way some kids on the spectrum will do stimming like this, right? She's doing what's called scripting. Scripting is like stimming verbally, right? So she's scripting, and for whatever reason, she's stuck in this Paw Patrol, and that's her little script, and she's going to say the same thing over and over and over again, and that's fine. So the whole idea is we want to make what they're doing fine. So we establish safety and trust, right? If this young lady only wanted to get adjusted there, in that one seat, every time she's in, that's all she would go to, is there. Right? Okay, that's totally fine. And the cool thing about this picture is the mom says she never looks or touches anybody. And she's looking and touching me during this adjustment, right? Because this is the power of what it is we do when we build the trust, when we use polyvagal theory to build safety, when we use prediction theory to build predictability. This is her chair, right? If someone was in the chair, I'd say, can you get up out of the chair so we can, have her sit over here? Yeah.
I made if you're adjusting a horse and you're behind the horse, and normally the horse will kick you, right? You're creating a sense of a safe space for the horse that is kind of feeling safe, so it won't kick you. Is that kind of the same thing?
I've never adjusted a horse, so I
It's
don't.
possible.
I guess, yeah, and I have heard that from other people who have adjusted horses, and so it depends on what definition of kick means, because kick can be like just like kind of pushing like this, or kick can be like throwing you yards and breaking ribs. So it depends, but I think I can only tell you from adjusting a lot of dogs. I used to adjust a lot of dogs in my practice before they changed the laws here in Georgia, where now you have to have a license, a certification to adjust dogs. I'm not going to go back to school anymore. But it was the same thing. Like sometimes the dogs would try to nip at you, and it's because they didn't feel safe or trusted you yet. But eventually, if you kept on doing it and you did it with love and you didn't like slap them after they tried that, then eventually they come in and they'd be totally fine. So I think that's the same thing.
Same principle.
Yes, I think it is. Yeah. Yeah, and that brings a really good point, because prediction is the same across species, right? So this is not a human thing. Prediction is just like we talked about the birds and fish and everything. The prediction is a big thing in them also. So creating predictable adjustments, right? So he loved this particular room, so this is the room that we would just go into, right? So what does chiropractic do, right? What we do is we work on disrupted neurodevelopment. This is from the CDC website, right? So if there's any sort of issues that we want to work on, this is our thing. Because once you have disrupted neurodevelopment, everything else is going to follow as an issue of disrupted neurodevelopment. That's like the foundation. The foundation is disrupted neurodevelopment. I have a podcast in case you're interested. It is the longest running podcast in chiropractic. It's called Chiropcast. It's this is the QR code. It's totally free. I love talking about it because to me, what's really cool about this is that I have had patients come in and say, the way I got to you is through your podcast. Like, I heard your podcast, and now I'm a patient because I thought what you were saying was so great. Which I really appreciate. So this is not, even though it's really geared for chiropractors, but patients are out there listening. So I always tell people, like, create your own podcast, right? When you have your own offices, create your own podcast. I speak for the ICPA. Next weekend, matter of fact, I'll be in this room for 12 hours, well, not 12 hours one day, 12 hours Saturday before Sunday, talking about how to, taking this and applying it. We're going to apply brain-based adjusting, so we're going to talk about how I do this. I speak for Afner, the littlest thing. I speak for Dr. Portions, so anybody's interested, there it is. But the bottom line of everything is that the kids are our future. Right? The kids are our future. I love looking at this picture because she's adjusting, Mickey Mouse, and there's Minnie Mouse waiting, right? So we're teaching the principles of high volume adjusting very young, because I want her to understand that if she wants to be a chiropractor, that there's going to be a line of people waiting, for her, just like it is, in our practice too. So I